I want to talk to us this morning about failure and how do we process through and navigate through some of the hardships of life. I believe that failure is actually part of the cost of entry in the game. Whenever we go to a game, we have to pay a fee before we walk through the gates. And I believe that the cost to play the game of life, whether it's launching that business, whether it's trying to go into marriage, whether it's raising kids, sometimes the cost is just that we fail through those situations and through those times. And it's not just that we fail, but it's how do we handle the failure and move forward so that we can have success on the other side. There's two examples that I see that are huge examples in Scripture. Two men that won big and lost big. They played the extremes. The first one is King David. King David is this man that we love to look at, and we think, man, he slayed the dragon, right? He went after life. He killed the lion, he killed the bear, and he took down the giant Goliath. This was a man's man. He became the king. He was the warrior. He wins the princess. What a man. However, although he won big, King David also lost big. He had some personal failures in life whenever he set his eyes upon a woman that was not his wife in Bathsheba. King David committed at least half of the 10 Commandment sins. He coveted his neighbor's wife. He lied about it. He killed Uriah or had him killed. He had these major issues in life, and he paid dearly. Many times these failings that we have in life come with consequences. And so how do we move through these consequences? And one of the things that David did with this woman, Bathsheba, is she got pregnant and they had a child. And the child's pregnancy and delivery had all kinds of complications. And the child died right after birth. And David, during this time, he goes after the presence of God, and he hits his face, and he fasts, he prays, and he mourns over this child. And when the child eventually dies, it says that David got up, he took a bath, cleansed himself, put on some cologne and some new clothes, and he moved forward. And his servants came to him and he says, David, what's going on? It says, when the child lived, you mourned, but when the child died, you got up. And David's response was, no longer can my child come to me, but one day I shall go to him. There's a way that we get up after these failings. I believe that David's was the right, accurate one. We've got to find the presence of Jesus, where we come in and we hit the deck, where we seek God by getting our knees and our face on that carpet and saying, Jesus, I need you. I need you to bust through, to have this power encounter in my life. There's another one, and it's the Apostle Peter. But Peter didn't start out as the apostle. He started out as the fisherman. And sometimes we look at Peter as this loud-mouthed, kind of crazy man, fisherman. Sometimes he's making these mistakes. He's putting his foot in his mouth. But I believe that Peter was a pretty smart man. He was a fisherman that was navigating these seas long before we had radios, navigational devices, cell phones. He didn't have cameras underneath the bottom of his boat to track these schools of fish. He knew something. He was incredibly smart. He had to navigate the seas at night. No doubt he had failure night in and night out. Not knowing where the fish are, maybe going hungry, maybe starving at times. Maybe he's got a business deal that he has to provide so many fish to this dock or marina or this seafood restaurant. And yet he doesn't have any to show for it. There's a time whenever Jesus shows up and they've been fishing all night and they've caught nothing. And Jesus gives them some counsel on to throw their nets on the other side. I don't think that Jesus picked Peter based upon some eeny, meeny, miny, mo method approach. I think Jesus picked Peter because he was really good at navigating through failure. He was smart. Peter was a sharp guy, and Peter had some energy and some intensity to him, and he was willing to risk big, to win big, and even lose big at times. But I'll tell you what made Peter amazing. It's his ability to process and handle failure. Peter denies Jesus 3 times while Jesus is on his way to the cross. He starts cursing in the streets. This is one of the apostles, right? This is the elder of your church that's cussing in the streets. This is Peter, who's going to take over the early church and be the missional launch guy who denies Jesus in front of a little schoolgirl. He had some failings in life along the way. And yet his failure did not disqualify him from Jesus using him to be one of the greatest mouthpieces to talk about Christ's life here on the earth. Peter preaches the first message we see in the book of Acts, and 3,000 people give their heart to the Lord. Peter was used. King David was used. And Peter had this moment with Jesus when Jesus comes to him and reestablishes who he is. Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Take care of the flock. Peter, do you love me? Lord, I love you. Come on, let's do this, Peter. And we need to have these moments where we encounter Jesus. And it's not just this idea where I need to forgive me and I need to let myself off the hook because of how I had these failings, or because I maybe messed up my marriage, or I was too hard on my kids and now I'm feeling regret and pain. No, we want to encounter the forgiveness of Jesus, where he washes over us, where he cleanses us. Those times when we just weren't awesome and we missed it, that Jesus wants to come in and redefine some character in our life. Thomas Edison, when he was creating electricity in the light bulb, he says, I haven't failed. I just discovered 10,000 ways that it won't work. And I think the perspective is this overcoming mentality. I figured out a way that's not going to work. Maybe yours isn't so much a sin issue as it was you just missed it in business. And you put your best foot forward and it just didn't work. And maybe you lost big financially. Who knows what those losses have been, but we carry those losses deep inside of us for far too long. And I believe that Jesus today is wanting to say your loss has not defined you. Those failures are not the definition of your life. Allow me to redefine you. Allow me to put the worth and the value upon you. And as we get our minds washed and cleansed and our hearts encouraged, and we come into the presence where there's fullness of joy and where he establishes the identity upon our lives, that is where we become new creations. The old has passed and the new has come. I want to encourage you today that your failure is not your future and your failure is not fatal. Jesus has the final word on our lives. And so let's embark today as if our best day is still ahead. There's only good waiting for you. So come on, let's rise up. We can do this, family. I believe in you.